Today I want to talk about Alabama improving to 11-0 with an SEC championship and Cincinnati improving to 9-0 with an American championship and how that is going to impact the college football playoff selection show tomorrow morning and the Heisman Trophy race. And all that's coming up after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college football related, sports related. We have a good time. Got a lot to get through and not a whole hell of a lot of time to do it because I understand you're on the YouTubes and you got time, well, not to kill, but places to be. So let's talk about Alabama getting the win 52-46 against Florida. Start with the stats, man, which are bonkers. The so-called SEC, where defense was supposed to be dominant, was looking real 2017 Oklahoma Big 12 championship. I'm just trying to tell y'all, every time that y'all want to talk about how they don't play no defense in the Big 12, you do something like this, where we see 98 points scored, 418 yards passed for Mac Jones, 408 yards passed for Kyle Trask. That's 826 yards passing. My God. Najee Harris is a monster, had over 250 yards total, 178 yards on the ground, 31 carries, 2 TDs. And then we had Devontae Smith with 15 catches for 184 yards. And let's not forget Kyle Pitts, who's going to run away with the Mackey Award. That man had 7 catches for 129. Kadarius Toney is probably the unsung hero of all of these players. But one of the questions that was asked going into this, and I wrote about this over at foxsports.com, is how would the Heisman votes get really dissected and divided if Mac Jones had a big game, Devontae Smith had a good game, because one is dependent upon the other, right? Mac Jones having a big game is 100% what needs to happen for Devontae Smith to have a big game. Not so much for Devontae Smith, for Mac Jones to have, for Devontae Smith to have a big game, for Mac Jones to have a big game. And then there's Najee Harris, who going into this game I also wrote about because, again, Fox Sports, where I wrote about Trevor Lawrence, Ian Book, Justin Fields, and basically the 6 dudes that are most likely to win the Heisman, plus Najee Harris. And Harris is having a better season this year than Derrick Henry or Mark Ingram had when they won the Heisman Trophy. He's been that legitimately awesome. He is RB1 going into the NFL draft. Can't wait to cover that as we get closer to that time. Find out which one of the guys is going to declare and then get into the NFL draft workouts. Now that we have a vaccine, might actually be able to congregate and do some stuff a little later on. But my one criticism of this game for Florida is, where the hell was this last week? All right. Florida falls to 8-3. If Florida was able to beat LSU convincingly, not even convincingly, just beat LSU, you could really make an argument now for them playing in a New Year's Six Bowl and or playing in the college football playoff. That's out with a loss to Alabama today. A loss to ampersand U as well. Texas A&M pulls out a victory against a bad Tennessee team, a team so bad that Tennessee fans want to see Jeremy Pruitt fired in the worst way. Then you got Jimbo Fisher stumping for his team on other teams, and that's what he does. But he's doing that because Notre Dame looks so bad against Clemson earlier this afternoon in Charlotte. The most lopsided conference championship game we had all day, right? The one that was a snooze. The one that got away from Notre Dame in the second quarter. And the one that might have not just put Trevor Lawrence back into the Heisman race in a meaningful way, but might actually lead to him winning it because there are still Heisman voters that still think that there's a split, right? With Mac Jones, Najee Harris, and Devontae Smith. I say it's Devontae Smith because I watched the SEC championship game. Florida made it their job to take away Devontae Smith, and they still couldn't do it. Matter of fact, there's one in which he's just running completely scot-free because they lost track of him in the coverage, right? Also, hit of the game, John Mechie. Check out my Instagram, right? Because I uploaded it to the reel set to Jim Ross, calling John Mechie, doing that to Troy Dean where that ball gets popped loose after the interception. Outside of that interception, Mac Jones was amazing. 33 of 43, 76.7 yards. I still don't think he's the best player on his own team, let alone the best player in the country. That's how good Najee Harris, Devontae Smith have been. That's how good Jalen Waddle was before. Kyle Trask's Heisman chances gone, out the window. They'll play Probably in a New Year's Six Bowl, probably in the Orange Bowl. We'll see. Georgia might have something to say about that because Georgia didn't get to play Vanderbilt earlier today because that game got canceled because Vanderbilt didn't have enough players to go. Now, what we're really going to have to discuss into the morning until the committee makes its decision is, do we put in a one-loss Notre Dame team that beat the conference champion but lost to the conference champion in the conference championship, or one-loss A&M team that got beat by 28 by Alabama at full strength with Jalen Waddle? The thing that Florida would tell you is that, look, they lost to LSU without Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts obviously had an impact in this game and helped them make it a 6-point ball game. I mean, they lost by just a touchdown, the number one team in the country, and a unanimous number one according to the Associated Press. I think, for me, I sincerely regret that Cincinnati's not going to have an opportunity to play in this game. Not because Cincinnati's better, right, than A&M or Notre Dame, but because we'll never get to find out. We do know this. There's a 0 in the loss column. And all y'all can do is give them attaboys as opposed to giving them the opportunity to go play for championships, the one that matters. They played against a very good Tulsa football team. I'm very proud of that football team. Defensively, they're just stout. Jackson Player was probably the player of the game defensively for them, also made the fatal penalty that put them into field goal range. Cincinnati had a kicker coming off of COVID, wasn't all the way there. Luke Fickell didn't even want to try him on kickoffs because he wanted him fresh. He wanted him to think about trying to make his kicks because he'd been pulling it since coming back. And he nailed one to give them the 3-point victory in a really awesome game. Zach Smith still couldn't get out of his own way. He doesn't throw interceptions in this game. Tulsa wins their first conference championship in nearly a decade. And, man, that would have been so much fun. That would have been so cool. Shout out to Tulsa, who's probably going to go to the Birmingham Bowl after all of this. Mike Oresco is probably going to lose his mind because Cincinnati's not going to finish higher than 5th, right? Which is, oh, God, that's right outside of where you want to be, right? A&M, Notre Dame, probably in that 5th spot, but I'm just going to say that perhaps Cincinnati could be there. They're going to vault to 6th, I think. I think they're going to be ahead of an Oklahoma who might be 7, right? Because they're undefeated. Oklahoma has the 2 losses, and even though they won the Big 12 championship, you can't say a whole lot of bad things about a team that is undefeated. Same thing with Coastal Carolina, who is 11-0. Shout out to San Jose State, who improved to 7-0 with a win against Boise State. I want an expanded playoff, not because I believe that Coastal Carolina, Cincinnati, or San Jose State will win the college football playoff national championship, but because they deserve a shot to win it, and because it would be so much fun in an opening round weekend of playoffs to get those teams in there, the way that Northern Iowa gets in there, the way that the Atlantic 10 gets in there, and you get these automatic qualifiers, you get these dynamic matchups where every now and again you can get Ali Farouk-Manesht, right? You can be the team that upsets a number one team in a seeding round. Like, you could do that on an opening day. It'd be so much fun to do that. And for the folks that say that it devalues the regular season, yeah, those pay games with Idaho State and Western Carolina and South Carolina State and what else we got? Western Illinois, Southern Illinois at Edwardsville. Yeah, those games mean a whole hell of a lot during the regular season, don't they? Look, man, I live in Oklahoma, which means that I spend a lot of time going to Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana in the non-COVID times, right? To say that I spend a lot of time paying attention to high school football and a lot of high school football in Texas. You have playoffs that go on for like 8 weeks, all right? Nobody says that the regular season is devalued because it's a lie. It's a bold-faced lie. You played 10 games this year if you were lucky, and not one of them was all the way important. Nobody's looking at that game you played against Vanderbilt and saying that, hey, that was really going to help us figure out who the best teams in college football are. Like hell. Nobody's looking at the game that Oklahoma played against Kansas and it's like, that's a real data point that we needed to have. Stop lying about this. It's untrue. It's incorrect. Why do you hate fun? Golly. I'll add in here that Notre Dame is probably going to get the 4th spot because the committee's already demonstrated that it likes Notre Dame and is probably going to keep Notre Dame even if, they lose to Clemson, no matter how bad they lost to Clemson. Last time Notre Dame played in the Sugar Bowl, though, which is where they would be in the 4th spot, playing a number 1 Alabama, they got beat by LSU 41-14 2007. Jamarcus Russell, LaRon Landry handed it to them. I very much looking forward to the opportunity for Notre Dame to go down there and see what New Orleans is really about. Once again, I'd also be all for Aggies and Saban Because Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban, they used to work with each other. You know what I'm saying? And like when Nick Saban got the job at Alabama and Jimbo Fisher was up for the job at UAB, the Alabama board of regents blocked him from taking the job at UAB because they didn't want anybody to challenge the sanctity of Alabama football. Right? Just give that a little thought there. And nobody would love another opportunity at Clemson like Jimbo Fisher. That might happen. Might not. All right. That's it for me. Deuces.